Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to the second FIP Insider webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is James Hughes, I'm the CEO of FIP. I just wanted to say that we've been blown away by the response to these webinars. I'm delighted to say that for this one we've got more than 350 people registered, so thank you for your support. And today we've got a real treat for you. Those of you who've attended the Digital Innovators Summit will know that one of the highlights of that event is the presentation of the launch of the FIP Innovation in Media World report. The DIS has obviously been postponed until the autumn, but that doesn't mean we can't bring you the report's author, John Wilpers, to tell you all about it. And you can expect his usual high energy, high enthusiasm introduction to the key themes from this year. But before I introduce John, let me run through some housekeeping items. We'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation, so please use the Q&A button, which you can find in your webinar controls, to submit these. You can type your question in. You can also upvote other questions from other delegates, and you can make comments on them as well. There's also a chat box which you can also access via your webinar controls. You can use this to chat either privately with John and myself or with the other attendees using the little drop-down box, and we'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the event. Now, there'll be a number of polls taking place throughout John's presentation as we ask you to give your opinion on different aspects of what he's talking about. So when you see these, please can you vote? Some of them are single choice and some of them are multiple choice, and we'll be sharing the results as we go along. We'll also be posting in the chat box a link so that you can buy copies of the book. Now, these events and the work that FIP does to share knowledge across the industry would not be possible without the support of our corporate partners. Pressreader, the world's leading digital content discovery platform, and UPM, the world's leading forest-based bioindustry company. We thank both of them for partnering with us, and you'll be hearing more about their work in future webinars. We're doing something new for this one too. We rely really on the support of the industry to enable us to carry out our work. Our two leading annual conferences, the Digital Innovators Summit and the FIP World Media Congress, provide the bulk of FIP's revenue. And at the moment, there really isn't any certainty as to what extent we can count on income from these events in the medium term. So to continue our work on behalf of the industry, such as this new FIP Insider webinar series, we've decided to create a GoFundMe page. This is an initiative that allows you to contribute to support our work for the industry as you see fit. We are, of course, a not-for-profit organisation. We do not pay dividends. All of our income, including these donations, is invested back into activities of benefit to the industry as a whole, including for people like you supporting our work. A link to the campaign will be posted in the chat during the event, and I hope you'll be able to support us. For those of you that are already members of FIP, we thank you very much for your support. You should remember also that FIP members get a free digital copy of the report. For those of you that are not, we would encourage you to join. Please contact me for more details on how to do that. You can reach me up to james@fip.com. And then tomorrow you'll all receive a post-event email with more details on how to buy a copy of the book, and crucially with a link to the slides that John is about to present. So you don't need to take screenshots or copies of what John is presenting. You can just listen because you'll get copies tomorrow. Now, this is the latest in a series of webinars that will be running over the coming months, and I want to share the schedule with you so that you can just talk through some of the highlights that we've got in future weeks to come. If I can share that. Oops, just get rid of that, apologies. So on the 23rd of April, we'll be hearing from the River Group's Nikki Murphy and Capgemini's Head of Commerce, Danny Rippon, on global brand marketing strategies, basically what's happened in the light of the current crisis and what publishers can learn from it. On the 28th, we'll be hearing about the new thinking in content distribution with Nikolai Malyarov. We've got Tom Triumph on April the 30th, a well-known business thinker and writer, talking about intentional evolution and organizational change. On May the 5th, we have the always popular launch of the next edition of the Digital Subscription Snapshot. And then on May the 7th, we'll be in conversation with Dow Jones, one of the companies that obviously is doing well from the current situation with an increase in their news brands, to hear how their business is doing. Let me just see if there's anything else I've missed. No, I think that's it. So the details of all of these are on the website, and they're also going to be in the post-event email. I think that's probably enough from me now. So let me hand over to our presenter for today. He's a writer, an editor, media executive with more than 35 years experience in the industry. He's now the senior director in the US for our partners Innovation Media Consulting. He's one of the authors of the book, and I'm delighted to welcome John Wilpers. John, off you go.
Good morning. Happy to be here. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to start sharing the screen and going to the slide presentation. So today we're going to talk about the 20 to 21 Innovation in Media World Report. But first of all, I'm hoping, and we all at FIP and Innovation hope, that you and your family and friends are all healthy and safe. This is a truly tough time in so many ways. We get horrible news every day. But as dark as it seems, we will get through it. And one of the ways of getting through it, obviously, as an industry, will be webinars like this. But another way that you might not have thought of is humor. Why humor in the face of a disaster? Well, a British comedian suggested that people want jokes partly because jokes are a relief and take the edge off danger, and partly because they're a way of processing the experience. And yes, partly because this is a massive shared experience. So we're going to kill two birds with one stone. We're going to learn and laugh. A few opening jokes, some learning, a quick joke, more learning, another quick joke. And those periodic jokes will take the form of my list of the top 10 most creative COVID-19 face masks. And at the end of the session, we'll vote for the best mask. And by voting, you'll be eligible to win one of 5 free copies of the innovation book. So stick around to the end, right? So we're going to open with a couple quick laughs. Here's Sisyphus working from home. Here's your cat wanting to know why you're in her house so much. Here's a guy pulled over for speeding, talking to the officer. Oh, was I speeding? And roll of toilet paper. And lastly, if you need one, here's a social distancing tool, apparently very effective. Okay. Now, I thought about changing this presentation to be purely pandemic solutions, but then I looked around and looked at my emails and I saw that there are a ton of resources out there. There are a lot of people, a lot of industry organizations doing a terrific job, INMA, FIP, so there's no lack. But when we come out of this, we're going to need innovative ideas to meet the challenges that were here before COVID and will not have gone away. As a matter of fact, will have gotten much more important. And those are human capital, the monetization, content creativity, podcasting, and sustainability. As a matter of fact, pardon the spelling mistake, mastering these topics will be more important than ever. But all the good ideas in the world will be pointless or are pointless if we continue to fail in the one area that makes these innovations possible, and that is human capital. Year after year after year, in talking with publishers all around the world, they say the biggest problem they have is hiring, retaining, and training the best possible people. So when we come back from this global pandemic, it'll be more important than ever to get this right, and going through it is going to be very important because you have your A team still around you, and they need to feel that they are valued and that they are dealing with something that they believe in. So here's a pop quiz. This is not for you, James. This is just a quick one here. You're really good at finding top talent when you need it, getting the talent to join your company, never having key people leave, giving your people the training they need, providing regular performance reviews, always ranking as one of the best places to work, avoiding bad scores on company ranking sites, holding regular listening times that lead to positive change. So if you answer yes to all that, go get some coffee. But if not, here's what you need to do to update, to improve your score. Everything in this field has changed. The skills we need, the type of people we need, the way they and we communicate, the workplace, the pace of change, the ability to predict performances, the availability of data that can take much of the guesswork out of recruiting and retaining, our ability to be flexible about things that used to be rigid. And yet, we're still hiring the same old way. We still just post jobs and wait. And then we waste tons of money and staff time sifting through hundreds of unqualified applicants. And we're often in a rush, so we end up settling for less than the best. Here's a professor from the Wharton Business School saying businesses have never done as much hiring as they do today. They've never spent as much money doing it, and they've never done a worse job. So now we have to do is dramatically change our HR practices from hiring, training, retaining. And even if you think you're good at it, you're probably not, because what's worked before just does not work anymore. You'll see in a minute. And if you're honest, you really have to admit, right, that the old way hasn't worked predictably all that well anyway. Whoops, sorry. Before we continue though, here comes creative corona mask number 1, the kitchen sponge. This is a very low cost alternative, as you'll see as we go along. Okay, recruiting and hiring. Obviously, top talent is critical. According to McKinsey, superior talent is 8 times more productive. And yet, despite the acknowledged importance of acquiring top talent, 82% of companies do not believe they recruit highly talented people. They just don't get the best. So now, James, we're going to do a poll here. Do you believe that you get the talent you need? This is just simply answer yes or no. Let's see if you guys are similar to the 82% figure that Wharton had or that McKinsey had. I trust everybody can see the poll. There we go. Wow, I have 42% at yes is impressive. But 58% is also, it shows what we're about to cover is going to be important. And we'll see about retaining in a minute. All right, James, if you could close that poll, that'd be great. For some reason, it's still showing up.
I think everybody can close that window individually and then just carry on, John.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so I have to close it myself here. Hang on just a second. Hang on. There it goes. All right. For the companies that do seem to acquire people that they want, only 7% think that they can keep them. Again, from McKinsey. So we're going to do another poll. And do you feel that you retain the talent you need? I'm curious to see if the percentages remain the same. Wow. Okay. Much, much better than I thought. Cool. Okay. So how as an industry do we entice talent, especially with the relentlessly negative press our industry has been getting? We end up having to make our companies appealing places to work and remake our company's culture to be employee focused. And all this sounds very sort of theoretical, but we're going to get into the how-to in just a minute. And then this is one of the more important parts that very few people are doing. We have to broadly market that new culture to attract the people that we want. We can't just sit back and wait. Good help is not hard to find when the top talent is looking for you. And they're going to be looking for you because they're going to know about you. So, and what are they looking for? They're looking for a mission they can believe in, a positive culture, stimulating challenges, professional growth, mentorship, competitive pay, rewards for excellence, advancement opportunities, and flexible work hours and locations. So we need to do the following. We need to make sure that our company's mission and values are appealing, they're clear, and they're easily discovered. I looked to see who was coming to this webinar, and I went around to some of your sites, and I'll be damned if I could find the mission and values, and certainly not why you're working for your company is better than working for the company they're currently at. An employee-focused culture which emphasizes individual growth and flexibility, and that should be obvious on your website and on your HR pages and on your recruiting. And getting your best ambassadors involved in recruiting who are your employees. So here comes creative Corona mask number 2. This is a great, the sanitary pad with tampon accessories. Might have thought of the sanitary pad, but not the accessories. So why do we want to do all this? 84% of employees would consider leaving their current job with you to move to an employer with a fantastic reputation, even if the salary bump wasn't that big. So doing these things is a win-win. You're going to have a happier workforce, and they'll become your most enthusiastic ambassadors. So how do you do all this? You have to market your new culture, whether you're looking to hire or not. And what you would do is what you would tell your advertisers to do. Expand your social footprint, create content about your culture, search engine optimization, landing page conversion optimization, the landing page where someone would go to respond to an ad, content marketing, reputation management, social media engagement. Content has the power to help potential candidates decide whether or not they're a fit for your company. And the candidates are very savvy, obviously. They're using a number of resources when they research a job or they evaluate you as a potential employer. And companies that don't just post, but also create compelling content that adds value, including answering the question of why working at their organization is different from working at others, help guide a candidate's decision. Content can make or break your talent attraction strategy. So here's another poll. Do you guys regularly create content about your culture? This is a yes or no. So James, this is for you. Okay, so fewer than were happier earlier. Okay. So what type, when you're thinking about the type of content that you should be creating about your company, you want to think about the type of content that will resonate with your potential hires. And then how can your job description be optimized to increase the application conversion rate? And then you look at where would your potential hires go? Where can you find them? What's their digital footprint so you know where to advertise? And once you've identified the best places, believe it or not, you start personalizing your campaign to the point of creating personas to guide the people who are writing the content. And one of my favorite, one of the most successful recruitment ads for a software engineers at a leading IT company called for people who could, quote, pull the ears off a gun dart. I have absolutely no idea what that is, but it was an obscure Star Wars reference that they knew would resonate with their target group. So they really personalized the search. Now here's a piece that I find most companies don't have any idea about, and that's defensive marketing. In this super connected world, you can be doing everything right in terms of brand marketing, but a large part of your brand building or destruction is happening without any input from you and probably without you even knowing it. At least 5 companies globally allow your current and former employees to condemn or commend you in public. They can choose to rank your company, your CEO, the job interview, and best or worst of all, they answer the question, would you recommend your company to a friend? So I went and looked, I picked the biggest 11 companies, or just a choice of 11 top companies in media that I could find, and looked at their Glassdoor ratings at the end of 2019. 80% failed to hit or beat the average company ranking of 3.3. And only 50% of the CEOs were above that average ranking. So let's take a look. In the company ranking, the average is 3.3, Condé Nast, 2.8. SCMP in Hong Kong got that, Dentists got 4.0. But look at TVA in Canada, 2.3, and others at 2.8, 2.5. So how about the CEOs? Condé Nast might have been ranked low, but they got a 70 for their CEO. Meredith 67, Berta 93, India Today 100, SCMP in 74, Dennis 97, Core TVA in Canada 14. And this to me is the most crucial question to answer. And the average is 49%. Only a third of these 11 companies hit that. Condé Nast down at 36%, Meredith 48, India Today 68, Abril 62, Dennis 61, Port TVA, and look at the others at 37, 34. You know, if you're looking at a job going to that company, those numbers are not going to encourage you. And then you can see the numbers for the job interview. There are a lot of improvement needed there too. Only 3 of the 11 got a 50%. So you can be spending a lot of time and money on your branding, but it could be getting you eviscerated by these sites. So let's do a poll. How many of you know your score on any of these rating sites? Just yes or no. So James, there we go. Yeah, I think one of the things you might want to do is go take a look. Depending on where you are in the world, there may be more or less options, but do take a look. Okay. Now, creative corona mask number 3, the full water bottle approach. Anyway, so how to watch your back. Obviously, follow your profiles on all of those sites. Sign up to receive alerts the minute something is filed. Develop a plan for responding, particularly to negative. Encourage more reviews by addressing and responding. Do not ask employees for reviews or pay them or even buy fake reviews, but do let your staff know that reviews are important, and so that if they want to, they can put them up. So once you've got somebody in, retaining is pretty tough. More employees than ever are leaving voluntarily. In the US, for example, the most workers since 2001, 3.58 million, or 2% of the workforce, quit their jobs in July of last year alone, 1 month. That meant that's 115,000 a day, or 4,800 an hour. Why? 5 forces at work. Strong labor market. In many countries, there are more skilled openings than there are people with those skills. Poaching. Majority of people, I didn't know this, the majority of people who took a new job last year were not searching for one. Somebody came and got them. That could be happening to you right now. Employee dissatisfaction. Half of all employees say they only have jobs, not careers. 32, a third, plan to leave their jobs before the end of this year. Greater job mobility. 73% of employees are thinking about another job. 43% are more likely now than they were a year ago. And a lack of loyalty. Millennials are far less loyal than their parents. In the US, for example, the average time on a job is 4.4 years. A millennial, half that. And there's a serious cost to not retaining. The cost of recruiting, hiring, onboarding, and training runs from 90 to 200% of the annual salary you're replacing. Then there's lost productivity, decreased morale, disrupted culture, lost institutional knowledge, probably to a competitor, lost smooth working relationships, interruption of teams, and the existing staff driven to look to leave because you didn't hire from within. So in addition to time and effort of hiring, outside hires take 3 years to perform as well as internal hires, according to the Wharton Business School. Meanwhile, internal hires take 7 years to earn as much as an outside hire is paid. Here comes Corona mask number 4. This is for word people, this is a great one. The coffee filter. Okay. 13 key retention strategies. Here are the things you could do. Start with a smooth onboarding process. Create a mentor program. Provide thoughtful professional feedback on a regular basis. Focus on the 5% of the people who create 95% of the value. Create an employee value proposition, and all this is explained in depth in the book. Shut up and listen regularly. Act on the results of the listening. Remember, it's not about all the perks, just the right ones. Help your people grow, train regularly, promote from within. Be family friendly. Look at your pay rates versus other media companies. encourage work-life balance, and start new projects with stopping existing projects. I think we'll skip this one just to move along. In the book, we have how to set up a mentorship program, how to create an employee referral program. Those are very valuable, by the way, because nobody's going to recommend somebody who's going to make them look bad. 5 sites where you and your company get rated. What is human analytics and how to choose a system for hiring and retaining, how to hire women, and 5 questions to ask at a stay interview. So now we're going to take a look at monetization. In the book, we have a chart that lists our 13 proven business models to help your company thrive. That's subscriptions, being a nonprofit, e-commerce, events, club, IT provider, advertising, agency, data broker, brand licensing model, investor model, nostalgia, and educator. And in each case, we take a look at how do we, how is it set up? What's the collection process? What are the potential benefits of income? What are the requirements and what are the risks? So we're going to go through these very quickly, but in the book, there's a lot more detail and a lot of data. So in the subscription model, obviously reader revenue is providing stable and growing income while advertising has remained volatile, with many media companies reporting worse than expected results for 2019, and 2020 is just going to be a disaster. So not only is subscription revenue growing, though, it's morphing beyond its original form to include greatly expanded niche vertical subscriptions, profitable enterprise B2B sales, we saw that in a couple of clients, conversions to high-end product subscriptions, and most importantly, whole departments dedicated to retention where there were no departments before. The Washington Post, for example, had nobody working on retention in 2015. Now they have 25. Business model number 2, advertising. For all the doom and gloom, advertising does remain a growth area, but the only solution for media companies competing for the cash not already taken by the platforms and squandered by ad blocking is to fix the broken online ad model, which you can do. More engaging, less intrusive digital advertisements will lead to an upward spiral, decreased ad blocking, increased revenue, fewer but more relevant ads per page, and ultimately a better user experience. Model number 3 is memberships. For starters, it's very important to remember that memberships are not a subscription by another name, not a tote bag or a tchotchke. They're not a strictly American thing. They're not a branding campaign that you can use when revenue is flagging, because in memberships, it's a whole different social contract or value proposition. Subscribers pay money and get a product, but members join the cause and participate because they believe in it. And The Guardian is a great example of that. Creative Corona mask number 5. The fresh onion mask. This poor guy, I can't believe he kept that on for as long as he did to take the photo. E-commerce, model number 4. E-commerce and mobile commerce together enable both an instant creation of a need and the instant satisfaction of that need. Media companies whose trusted editorial teams give readers expert reviews of products not only fulfill a customer's need for product purchase information at the beginning, middle, and end of the funnel, but it also proves the company's power to deliver results to partners and advertisers, and creates 2 new potentially robust revenue streams: the direct commission or commission revenue from product sales, and advertising revenue from brands who purchase native ads and branded content around the service journalism. Number 5, events. Now, events have taken a hit lately, but they're going to come back because human beings just need to be together, and we will still have this experience economy driver. 78% of millennials choose to spend money on a desirable experience rather than the material product. People have so many digital experiences these days, and they spend all their day on digital. They're craving a live experience more and more. And when we get out of this, they're going to crave it even more than that. Media companies have everything needed to run a successful event. You are, in essence, an event company because you have relevant content, you have the niche expertise, you have a loyal following in that niche, you have a targeted mailing list, you have a niche customer database, you have existing relationships with event sponsors, you have the media platforms with large followings to promote events. Brand licensing, model number 6. Used correctly, brand extensions can reinforce the credibility of your company, help you connect with new audiences, strengthen your image around the world. And manufacturers these days are increasingly willing to partner with publishers to make branded products because of your digital properties, your compelling content, your robust social media accounts. And also, we possess the first-party data of millions of customers, extremely valuable stuff. The agency and content marketing model. The expertise in media companies is looking a lot like an agency to more and more brands around the world. The skill sets that you have look a lot like an agency: the knowledge of a desired audience, the knowledge of a brand's customers, access to and relationship with the desired audience, an audience database second to none. We are exquisite storytellers and we're expert videographers. We have the media tech experience. We have proven sophisticated design capabilities, multimedia, multi-platform, multi-channel expertise, proven marketing expertise, and an understanding of how to build a sophisticated multi-platform campaign. So many brands have given up trying to create branded content and media campaigns on their own, even with traditional legacy agencies. So as a result, we're seeing media companies that have created in-house agencies, and the results now represent from 5 to 60% of total revenue. Aha, number 6. I don't know if you remember these things. Used to hand them out, you pop them in your computer to run your antivirus program. This one gets high marks for creativity, but low for effectiveness. Business model number 8, the nonprofit business model. This is tough because 93% of journalism-focused grant money goes to US-based organizations, leaving just 6% for Europe and 1% for the media outlets in developing world. It's not easy. Unless you're one of the established big nonprofits, you're left with the crumbs and very little chance of breaking into the big time to get a significant foundation support. And worse, most of the grants seem to be going, especially these days, to news organizations and not magazines. That's not to say it's impossible, and I have some examples in the book, but it's hard. Number 9, another toughie, IT provider. Only the largest, best funded, and most established publishers can create and then sell and license technology. And as a result, no surprise, tech sales and licensing was the least common revenue source for publishers in a survey. Most of us lack the resources to build tech products because it takes a lot of expensive talent and lots of time to build market-ready technology. It's possible. There are some examples in the book of smaller companies who've done it. Number 10, the data broker. Now this one, you often hear people talk about the pivot to video, the pivot to podcasting, but the pivot to data is really the biggest opportunity in the market today. Why? Because we can look at what we already have, which is rich behavioral, subscriber, and social data, and most of it seriously underleveraged. When used properly, this first-party data can help publishers drive revenue in 2 ways, directly and indirectly. Educator. Now, this might sound a bit like a subset of the events business model, but it's really a horse of a different color, very different from festivals and dinners and beach parties and so on. And once it's established, they run and run and run very profitably. And again, there are more details about this in the book. The nostalgia business model, here's another easy peasy one, because you're sitting on a gold mine, which is your archives. There are assets you've already paid for, so aside from any handling, it's just clear profit. You have the long tail of people buying it as single copies, also pushed out to subscribers, and advertisers love them because they can own it entirely. This is from the New Yorker. Aha, Creative Corona Mask number 7, the complete body rainbow pony. I don't know how he or she drove the car to get there. Investor, number 13. Big media companies looking for a path forward are wise to participate, even if modestly, in the startup world. This is a guy from an investment firm. And I think it's not just big media companies. I think any media company should be doing this, particularly in your own community. The visibility and signals that the market can send are immensely valuable in thinking through approaches that might benefit a larger group, or again, as I said, even a smaller group. And sometimes that investment is not very significant. Also in the book, we have a chapter on podcasting, because podcasts are fast growing, relatively inexpensive, extremely effective, lucrative revenue sources, and proven subscription drivers. Explosive growth year over year. In the US, for example, 1/4 of adults, or 60 million people, listen a few times a week or more. 91 million listen at least once a week. Here's who listened in the last month. 58% in South Korea, 40% in Spain. These are big numbers across the globe. And the countries with the fastest growth are not what you might expect. 84% in Chile, 55% in Argentina, Peru, Mexico, and China. In addition to big numbers, podcast listeners listen a lot. The average listener consumes 7 episodes. The average length is 39 minutes, and they complete 80% of them. Whereas on YouTube, a good finish is 50%, and those are only last 1 to 8 minutes. The average Facebook watch, 23 seconds. There are some people who are talking about, oh, we hit podcast saturation, right? Because there are 2 million podcasts, and they're growing by as many as 1 new podcast every 3 minutes. But then when you compare it to YouTube, 31 million channels, 15 times the number of podcasts, and they're growing by 37 new channels every 3 minutes versus 1. So I'd say there's still room, because audio listening is up 20%, while music listening is down 5%. And the demographics are really very attractive. Average listener, 39, average salary, 87K. They score high in terms of engagement. 76 said they've taken action. And they can't be poached. They're not like a text story or where a free title can come along and basically republish it and dilute the value, right? And they're inexpensive to produce, far cheaper than putting together a video. And the revenue is finally catching up to the number of viewers in a big way. 479 million was spent on podcast ads in 2018, which was a 50% increase and projected to grow to $1 billion in 2021 in the US alone. The CPMs are also very attractive. They can range anywhere from $10 to $25 for pre and post roll, $20 to $80 for mid, and $70 plus for highly sought after shows. The numbers, 9 podcasts, the Financial Times ad revenue tripled. China's podcast market is worth $7.3 billion. The Economist, a 50% revenue increase. The New York Times, 10 million. Sports outlet The Ringer, 15 million. Slate, it now represents half of their total revenue. This one company said, advertisers have come to us and said, we're only going to buy 2 kinds of ads next year, print and podcast. What have you got? Number 8, Creative Corona mask, the full body plastic wrap. Podcast revenue models. Lots of them. You can do advertising, virtual summits, influencer relationships, joint ventures, online courses, subscriptions, memberships, coaching and consulting, affiliate marketing, services, sponsorships, repackaging the content, paid public speaking, brand extensions, live events, paid apps, crowdfunding, intellectual property. In the book, we talk about the types of advertising that work, 8 launch mistakes to avoid, the podcast subscription tech challenge, why podcasts work for advertisers, a new hotel amenity, and the world's largest podcasts and podcasting's best practices. Creativity. Creativity, even you can be creative because there's a surfeit of tools now making it easier to accomplish than you might have ever thought possible. But we've come up with this caveat that we believe very strongly, and that is that in the 21st century media, you cannot wait for the muse, and you cannot apply it just to use the bright, new, shiniest thing. Because creativity in the 21st century must have a measurable purpose. At the New York Times, she says it should have a purpose within the business. For example, how does it tie to the New York Times subscription strategy? And we're also thinking about premium subscription products when they get to looking at creative things in the competitive landscape, because can you create a differentiated, unique product worth paying for? I think we'll skip this to move things along. So here's some audience engagement creativity tips. This is outside of being creative with say, magazine cover. This is how do you look at audience engagement in a creative way? And what they're doing is they say, let's look at it from the point of view, is there a community? Our future success, they say, is around the value that people see in their work and the willingness to pay for it. So here's one company's 9 criteria for a creative project and potential community. Does the audience self-identify as a group? Do the analytics show that this audience has a high likelihood of return visits? Does the audience have a connection? Can they own the audience? Can they do a job for the audience? Can we identify multiple opportunities for revenue? Can we identify a reporter and a team with a track record of attracting readership and a similar team to run coverage on various platforms and a team that's actually willing to do the sprint? Now in the book, we talk about more traditional types of creativity, the 9 types of visual storytelling on mobile, video, what are the criteria for a creative project, the steps to take before, during, and after, creativity in low-tech solutions, audience engagement. And this was a particularly good one if you're interested in data. The New York Times did a massive project, and they now made it available, all the training materials and all the resources, and we have the link to that in the book. Here comes number 9 out of 10, the full scuba outfit. Oh my God. Okay, sustainability. It could be that we've been just too busy struggling to survive, because otherwise I don't know how to define the dearth of any or any substantial environmental sustainability initiatives at many media companies. There was a rush of this activity about 10 years ago when it was initially hot. But now Going Green seems to be reduced to creating packages about climate change, spelling out how businesses, governments, and our readers can and should become good environmental citizens. But as far as we ourselves becoming good citizens, not so much. To be fair, some media companies have created environmental sustainability mission statements. They've established internal teams. They've identified measurable goals, and they've published the results. But a review of the 30 largest media companies in the world, followed by Google searches for other media companies' sustainability activities, revealed virtually nothing. Many media companies have no sustainability policy or goal at all. And of those that do, those statements and goals have not been substantiated with progress reports, or those reports have not been updated in years. Some may have sustainability policies and results, but a very thorough ongoing Google search demonstrated that their failure is in promoting those efforts. So if I'm not finding them, neither are their customers. We're going to skip this too. Whoop. Sustainability activities deliver a triple benefit: improve customer relations, because studies have shown that customers prefer to support companies with a record of sustainable practices. Bottom line savings. Studies have shown you can actually improve your bottom line by implementing sustainable initiatives. And saving the planet. After initial environmental audit, you can subsequently prove that your efforts are reducing your carbon footprint, among other things. But how do you begin? Many media companies have no idea what their carbon footprint is. And there's only really one way to find out, and that is to start with reliable data. Hire a third-party sustainability consulting firm that will analyze your entire process. And an unbiased firm can do a comprehensive, honest, end-to-end investigation and find ways to responsibly manage or reduce your energy use and waste that you might not have thought possible. And to help ensure buy-in, be sure to involve your staff in brainstorming ways and becoming parts of teams to tackle these things. After creating the mission and strategy, then you use your initial data as a baseline to measure your progress. And then, very, very important, to publish regular progress reports, including successes and shortcomings, so that you can show that you're honest and transparent. In the book, we talk about short and long-term strategies to win in this space, 22 big and small sustainability initiatives from Meredith, corporate level sustainability commitments from The Guardian, and how to say goodbye to plastic wraps. Here comes the last creative Corona mask, and it happens to be my favorite. Brave fellow. Okay, and the last chapter that everybody seems to enjoy very much, and I certainly do every year, is Offbeat, our annual dose of human genius and imagination. So, and this is not all of them, this is just a few. Here's Herbal Essence has seriously upped the ante for a free flower seeds campaign via print media with full-sized outdoor street-level billboards all around London. Each billboard had 3,000 detachable paper leaves filled with wildflower seeds. The ad encouraged passersby to grab a leaf, take it home, and plant the seed. Here's another one. Can a print ad be heard? Well, of course not, unless you take advantage of a phenomenon called synesthesia. Synesthesia is when two different senses cross in our brains, producing the impression that people are hearing something even though they're stimulated via another sense, their vision. So Coca-Cola used its instantly recognized product and its iconic rituals to trick the brain into automatically associating an image with a specific sound. And both of these ads were labeled, "Try not to hear this." They fill the silence with the expected sound, in essence creating an auditory illusion. The Guardian. In case of emergency, break the glass. Last February, The Guardian coated Berlin with 2,000 posters saying, in case of injustice or in case of corruption, break the emergency glass and take a complimentary copy of The Guardian Weekly. Here we have a woman in the act of doing it. There you go. So we have more fun in the book with massive covers built out of sand, 1,750 and 600 square meters, a 4G print, speed test in print, soundproof posters, a 3D coloring book, and a personalized cookbook. So before we wrap up though, two things. First of all, this wouldn't be a real life media production without a native ad, right? All of the ideas here and in the book come from our research, but also from our media consulting business. We've seen all the problems these innovations address, and we've helped media companies put innovations to work to increase their reach and revenue. Most importantly, we can help you convert your company from silos or from disconnected staff and management to committed teams working together to develop solutions that they create, believe in, and will execute rather than resist. During this crisis, we're offering to sit down with you and, if you wish, your team for a bespoke hour of focusing on your unique challenges with 2 to 3 of our best consultants. And then 24 to 48 hours later, we'll deliver a bespoke set of potential solutions and discuss them with you for another hour. Or just call or text me and I'll chat for free. Second, we've got to vote on your favorite creative Corona mask. So James, let's launch that poll. Here's your choices: the kitchen sponge, the sanitary napkin, the full water bottle, the coffee filter, the fresh onion, the antivirus disc, the full body pony, the full body plastic wrap, the full scuba outfit, and the athletic sneaker. Wow, the coffee filter, of course. Word people would choose the coffee filter. That's great. I'm sorry that my sneaker didn't win. Okay, so there's the poll. Everybody, please stay safe, stay hopeful. Very, very important to stay hopeful, stay connected with one another, stay inspired, and don't lose your sense of humor. We're going to close out with 2 last little jokes here. Here's a poor guy. He says, the 8th day of self-isolation, and it's like Vegas in my house. We're losing money by the minute. Cocktails are acceptable at any hour, and nobody knows what time it is. And lastly, this shit's getting real. I'm giving up drinking for a month. Wait, sorry, punctuation matters. I'm giving up drinking for a month. All right, everybody, thank you very much. Please get in touch with me if you'd like to chat. It's wilpers@innovation.media. Or the phone number to text or call me is at 1-617-688-0137. Thank you very much for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, John. Usual high energy, high focus presentation. Thank you very much for that. We have got some comments and some questions that we will be going through now. But let me just start with the ones that came up in the chat before we answer the ones that are in the Q&A. A comment from Mike Codinger from Maison Moderne, a FIP member based in Luxembourg. He says, that they're on Glassdoor with a 73% recommend to a friend rating. So well to them.
Wow,
very good.
That's awesome.
Very good performance. Erin McLaughlin is asking, where is the source of the information for publisher ratings? The one which rates international publishers, including their CEOs. What is Glassdoor the big one there, John?
Glassdoor is the big one, but there are 4 others. And Erin, if you send me an email, actually, you know what I'll do is I'll add a slide that lists those companies.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Let's go into the Q&A. Thank you, Magnus, by the way, Magnus Wesson saying, looking forward to the other webinars. Thank you very much, Magnus. Hope you can join us for some future ones. Let's go into the Q&A, and the top upvoted question is from Lars Reinecker, long-time FIP delegate, of course, been to many of our things. But what about losing talents to other industries caused by higher salaries there?
Well, that goes directly to that slide I talked about, how the culture makes a difference and how people will go to another company even if the salary bump isn't great, never mind huge. So if you've got a company where all those questions that they're looking for are answered, in other words, a great culture, a mission they can believe in, efforts to keep them trained and advanced, they feel appreciated and respected, people will value that over the money, from what I've read, 9 times out of 10. So if you make your place a company, an exciting, fun, rewarding place to work with chances of advancement, then you can compete with those higher salaries. It's tougher. I recognize that with high tech and tech people, but it's definitely possible.
Fantastic. We've got one here from your colleague Alvaro in Colombia. Hello, Alvaro. Great to see you on the call. who's asking, of those business models that you put up earlier, the monetization models, which one is the one that really we should be focusing on the most in this crisis?
I think right now it would be sharing your data, because you're going to want to reach out to companies for advertising, and you can share with them the data that they're going to be desperate to see how to reach the people they want to reach, and branded content. I would say those two.
Yeah, all those that have got some kind of direct-to-consumer relationship through a digital
Correct.
medium. We've got then the next upvoted one is from Amir Safir. Hello, Amir. How are you? From Review of Religions. Great to see you here. He says, John, great talk. What would you say is the greatest innovation you have seen a magazine take during the COVID-19 crisis?
I would say it was editorial teams reimagining what they're about and what they're doing, and reassigning people. For example, the Los Angeles Times took all of their sports writers, all their entertainment writers, and they put them in charge of writing stories about the people who die. They have a history of doing that at the LA Times. They were the first ones to personalize crime victims with stories about each one. So I think it's the people of the Atlantic. It's another great example. They just took everybody off of they have these obsessions that they use to channel their content coverage, and they took everybody off those obsessions and put them on what they correctly perceived to be the demand now for information about that. So I think that, and then from a monetization point of view, it's creating niche products that address the need that's perceived by your readers. So for example, with Hearst, what they did was they did lots of comfort stuff. So they decided to launch individual products that their readers were telling them, this is what we need right now as we're stuck at home with nothing to do. So it was recipe stuff and so on. So knowing who your people are and what they want in your niche will enable you then to create something that they would either want and pay for, or just want and appreciate.
Fantastic. Let's go to a question from Gaurav Verma, an old friend of mine based in India. Hello, Gaurav. Good to see you here. He's asking about mentorship. Why does mentorship fail? Is it because of a lack of quid pro quo? In other words, not an equal relationship?
No, actually, what I found when I looked into this whole mentorship thing is that it's the ability of the two partners in the mentorship relationship to feel that it's not entirely one way. That the companies that I saw that were successful at this gave the two partners money, not a lot, $20 to go out and have a sandwich together, and encouraged them. They also then said, meet once a month, if not more frequently. And what happened, and they were also very careful about who they paired with whom. So I think mentorship can succeed if initially the mentor, the older person or the more experienced person, understands that it's a two-way relationship and doesn't look down or belittle the person that they're being the mentor to. Okay,
fantastic. Let's go to a question now from Henrik Thorgerson on sustainability. It's a very important one, I think. He says, Dear John, I find the sustainable chapter highly interesting. It is a great chapter, and that was a really interesting piece of work, I think. Can you recommend a framework to make an audit of a media company's current activities and climate footprint? Have we come across an auditing framework?
I didn't come across frameworks, I think, and that's sort of way out of my area of expertise. But what I would do is look around, and I'll try to do this and send out a follow-up, is who are the companies that do the best audit, and what are their criteria, so that you could look at, you could come up with a checklist of here are the criteria for a good audit. And then when you're looking at companies that do it, run them through that and see who meets the criteria best. I don't know, to tell you the specifics. Okay.
Let's take a question now from our previous webinar guest, our previous presenter, Killian Schalke. Hello, Killian, based in New York. Those of you who were here last week will have seen him present on how to manage workflow in the crisis. He says, great presentation. Look forward to reading the report. Thank you, Killian. What's the best example of a magazine using first-party data to create revenue and grow engagement?
I can't think of a specific example right off the top of my head. No, that's not true. Abril in Brazil monitored both the data of their readers and the data that was put out by the Brazilian government about the sale of small or mid-sized apartments, not the big money apartments, not the little studios, but mid-level. They saw that that was taking off, and they created a magazine specifically designed to target that kind of reader. and it took off. It took off. That's the one that comes to my mind right off the bat.
Okay, fantastic.
But I think just to go back, it's not just having that first party data, but it's having the ability to parse it. So you need to be able to ask the data the questions that will reveal the trends that will help you decide what to do. So you got to have a data scientist of some sort, part-time, something, who can go through and ask the kind of questions that will reveal trends.
Great. We've got time for a few more questions. We've got about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to take one from Jan Moberg. Hello, Jan. Great to see you here. Thank you very much for joining us, the presenter at previous DIS and other FIP events, based in Norway, of course. He says, a very relevant question: what does the current situation, the pandemic, do to the findings in the book?
There are some people who said trash the book and just talk about instant solutions to the pandemic. And I was going to do that, except that I looked around, and as I said at the beginning, there are a whole lot of people who are doing a really good job at that. INMA is excellent, FIP is excellent. You can get a lot of Q&A stuff with publishers that are talking about this bespoke situation within their niche. So I think with what happens to the findings in the book, it actually makes them, to my mind, more important, in particular, the personnel, because this is going to be very, very tough to get through. Not only the not working with other human beings, but just keeping your spirits up. And so the whole thing about making your company an attractive company, and Jan, for you in particular as an executive, for you to continue, and your other executives to continue to let people who are out there working by themselves feel that they're appreciated, that their work is valuable, that there's a future here, and that you're doing everything you can to support them. I think that part of the book is very important. And I do think, I mean, in the 1919 flu thing, we bounced back from that. We are going to come back. And so these topics won't have gone away. And in some cases like sustainability, we're not going to forget that. That's very, very important. And more people are going to be looking at your company to see that you're doing these things. And if you can't show that you are, they've shown that people will take their dollars or their krona and go elsewhere. So I think, if nothing else, the sustainability chapter and the human capital chapter are very, very relevant.
Fantastic, thank you. We are almost out of time, but we have got more time, and we've still got lots of people on the call. So I think we'll just answer all the open questions and see if anything comes out of those. So next one, we're going to take a question from FIP board member, John, somebody I think you know, Lisa Conway from Summit in the Philippines, one of the pioneers in transitioning from a print business to a digital business.
Oh, yeah.
She's asking about your kind of downplaying of tech licensing for media companies, and saying that the best tech solutions and innovations for the media industry have come from media execs themselves creating innovative tech for their industry, not necessarily the big standalone tech companies with big ticket pricing.
Yeah, no,
how do you see tech licensing being a distant monetization model for media?
I think it's definitely possible, and there's a company, it's a small newspaper company that did this and created a $25 million advertising platform. So it's entirely possible. It's often driven by need. The company that there's several companies that do this tracking software came from a single guy, one guy who had a problem that wasn't solved by any existing properties, so he solved it himself and turned it into a very viable business. So no, it's not impossible, but it's just it's difficult to do, but again, not impossible.
Okay, great. Let's go back to the top of the list. Another question from Amir. How do you, and this is actually a question that a couple of people are asking, how do you think print magazines will be affected at the tail end of the lockdown? Are we seeing a real decline now?
I don't think so. We've always felt that print's not going to go away. It's just going to have a different role in the grand scheme of things. And I think that the options still to get away from this digital screen, to have a lean back experience, to be able to touch something. I think there are some companies that will probably fail, but not because it's print, but because of other economic issues. I think print is just I have two daughters, one is 32, one is 28, and they consider getting a print magazine a treat. They love it. One even subscribes to the print version of the New York Times. So I
Yeah.
think that those generations, the ones we least suspect, when we did the book last year, we looked at reader subscriptions, and the biggest growth in print subscriptions to the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times were millennials.
Yeah.
So I think that we might be misreading or maybe reading our habits into other generations, but I think print's around to stay.
Jessica Patterson, our correspondent in Canada, making the point as well there that we should acknowledge that as we're all at home, we're all reading more print than we would have been before. So there is something there about the viability of that medium.
Absolutely.
A question from Vijay Abraham. Vijay, thank you for joining us. How is it that more and more media professionals, especially journalists, are losing their jobs, but we find it difficult to attract talent? That sounds like a bit of a dichotomy.
I think it goes back to the attractability of the company, and that searchability, the creating. This is sort of like inbound marketing, where it takes time to build up the content so people discover you and they hear about you through other people who work for the company. So I think it's a matter of getting the word out that your company is a fun. Look at the Washington Post. The Washington Post was dying. I mean, they had to sell it, right? They couldn't figure out where to go next. In comes Bezos, and he makes it they're attracting tech people by the dozens. So it's not that a media company can't attract these people. It's how do you make the company attractive to the people you want? And I think you have to do that by going perhaps to your own staff and saying, what's right and what's wrong with our company? What can we do to make this company more attractive? And in the course of doing it, you're going to make it more attractive to the people who are there. You're going to create content that's going to be out there telling people what a great company you now have. And that will get people to come in. It is going to be tough. It is going to be tough because money is an issue.
Yeah.
What if it's a fun place to work and people who work there think it's a fun place to work? I mean, this is what we do as an innovation media consulting. We come into companies that are depressed, they're losing money, they're disconnected, they're working in silos, and we help them figure out how do you make this place a better place to work and thus attract people outside.
Okay. Question here from Owen Meredith at the PPA. Hello, Owen. Thank you very much for joining us. There is a new normal that everything becomes short-term and about risk mitigation because we're afraid of future lockdowns. We don't know how long this is going to go on for. Buyers might be afraid to commit for anything more than a month or two. How can traditional media, which by nature has this lag between planning and delivery, survive and thrive in this kind of uncertain environment, which might go on for a while?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I see that as well. I think what it is going to companies that you are looking at as possible advertisers and with a plan that is a 12-month plan or a 6-month plan that is well thought out. It's multimedia, it's multi-platform, it's multi locations. It's not just on your site. It's going to them in a consultative approach saying, look, we're in it. This is a tough time for both of us. How do we schedule what we want to do to make sure we survive and then ultimately thrive? And here's our plan for you. Here's what we think will work for you. And so you give them, it's not just the new normal about the short term. We are going to get out of this. And they understand that too. And you have to help them get past that. What can we do right now to survive? Let's deal with that, but then let's look at the longer view and build something that does both.
Fantastic. Another question from Gaurav asking about what are the best channels to target Gen Z and millennials?
They're very different, actually. If I had to say millennials, it would be Instagram, and if I had to say Gen Z, it would be TikTok. But then again, they both like videos, so I think YouTube is a good one. Yeah, those three, because I think you have to go where they are, obviously. And then the best way to do it is to just to ask them. You know, but a lot of the people who work for you probably have children who are that age and can tell you where they spend their time, and they'll roll their eyes if you're guessing wrong, and they'll let you know if you're guessing right.
There's nothing better to illustrate the pace of change in the industry than the fact that Instagram is now viewed increasingly as a platform for old people.
Yeah, right.
TikTok is where it's at. What is it, the average age of TikTok is
on the Facebook
or something?
Yeah.
A question from Daniel Makoko. Thank you very much, Daniel, for joining us. Where do you see the publishing industry going where tourism is concerned in the current crisis? We've obviously had the news about Lonely Planet, ex-colleagues of mine at Lonely Planet losing their jobs this week. We send our sympathies to them, of course. How do you think that the tourism industry is going to be affected by this in the long term?
I think it's going to be a case of delayed gratification. I'm seeing a lot of those sites doing things like inviting readers to send the pictures of their favorite vacations. Where are you going to go when this, I saw the Washington Post, by the way, area today did a thing of, here are 6 different itineraries, which will you choose? So I think for the time being, it's going to be, let's relive some of the best. Let's plan ahead to when this thing is over. And I think it'll be a case of, it's always a case with a publishing industry of meeting the needs of your clients. And so what are the needs of the clients in the travel industry right now, or the travel niche? And I think it'd be feeling nostalgic, and it would be let's dream about what we could do and helping them do that.
Great. We have a question here from Nikki Simpson. Hello, Nikki, up in Scotland from the International Magazine Centre. She says, thanks for a great talk. Thank you very much. What advice would you give independent or small publishers who've got a free distribution model? Let's expand that a little bit, independent and free publishers more generally. How are they going to cope at the moment, and what's their kind of future strategy looking like?
I presume you mean free as in print free, handout like the subways and kinds of things?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay. Well, then it just is, you're going to be forced into making a decision you were going to make maybe 5 or 10 years from now today, which is converting your free distribution model to a digital. Oh, free shops, bars, and cafes that are closed. Yes, right. Yeah, this is a particularly tough one. This is not one that's easily gotten around, but it's trying to figure out where the people are who used to pick it up, right? And making the digital copy available to them. If the sites are doing takeout, then convince them to put one of your copies in with the bag that goes out as takeout.
Yeah,
but otherwise, it's going to be trying to figure out who are the type of people who patronize that place and somehow getting them the digital copy. You could do a collaborative deal with those sites, those places that people go, and have your site the option for people to, when they come online to order, to sign up.
Okay, just a few more questions left. I think we'll just take 2 more. We'll do Jean-Marie Salomon. Jean-Marie, thank you very much for joining. Thank you for the talk. Do you think a mix between subscriptions, advertising, and branded content could help publishers to improve their bottom lines, or is it more the quality of the content and the videos? I guess you're going to say both, John, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to sort of say both. The quality of the content of the video obviously has to be high quality, so that's a given. I don't think it's advertising. I think you're going to have far better luck with subscriptions and branded content, which is a form of advertising, obviously, but than you are with just straight regular advertising. I think advertisers need to do the kind of connections that branded content allows them to do, more so than having a banner ad. Sponsorships, though, I would say subscriptions, sponsorships, and branded content, because a sponsorship could do something. They could sponsor something that your readers want. So they could sponsor a how to staycation at home. Yeah.
And let's take the last question from your colleague Alvaro. What is the role of governments funding media companies to survive this crisis?
Well, unless they're funding small and medium-sized businesses and big businesses, then probably there is no role. In the United States, there are a couple of bills in Congress with a lot of support from Democrats and no support from the Republicans to back up, to help out local media news organizations. There's no effort in terms of magazines that I've seen. If magazines can present themselves as small businesses, then they have a chance, but I would not look to the government. Certainly not in countries that have leaders like we do. Okay, great. Thank you very much, John. Thank you for that. That's about it for today's webinar. Pleasure.
Before we go, please don't forget to sign up to our newsletter, which you can do at fit.com. That's absolutely the best way to keep up to date with the latest events. Do also take a moment to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram at @FitWorld, and we have pages on Facebook and LinkedIn that you can follow. And you can also follow me personally on Twitter through @FIPCEO. Thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.